Hi, my name's Liz Sarver, and I am on the phone with James Dzelajlija, who is currently incarcerated at Lebanon Correctional in the beautiful state of Ohio. James is, kind of made his mark on the map by being caught up into some scandal in the Ohio system. You want to tell us a little bit about the Army of the 12 Monkeys?
Sure. So, a few years back now, August of 2012, these little pamphlets started floating around the Mansfield Correctional Institution. They were like 100 pages long. They were put out by this group called the Army of the 12 Monkeys. And inside of these pamphlets were just step-by-step instructions for different tactics that prisoners can use to screw up the prison system from the inside out.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I love that computer lady. She's going to interrupt me like 100 times.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, there's little things. You could do like folding staples out to look like a fish and then putting a little bit of like sticky substance or whatever on the mouth of the fish and sticking those staples inside of locks that are on doorknobs. Right? Nobody sees those, so that once a staff member inserts a key to unlock that door, what they're doing is pushing the staple in further, and the little sticky substance makes it stick to the back of the locking mechanism, and then the lock is jammed, and they can't do anything about it but replace the lock. Right? Little things like that cost money. To big things like how to organize a riot that was in there, how to organize work stoppages or work slowages or whatever. There was all kinds. I'm talking 100 pages just full of different things you could do. Army of 12 Monkeys, that's their thing. So people were reading these pamphlets, and some people started doing some of these things. And, the administration at the prison was not very happy with that. And they started locking us down and shaking everybody down real hard. It was pretty rough, like people were getting beat up. It was kind of screwed up. And one day in September, my cell gets shut down. And I write rhymes. I'm a lyricist. And one of the rhymes that I wrote was called Everyone Rise. And it was basically about, like, prisoners, joining forces and tearing the fences down, getting out of prison, right? Well, they found a couple other things that were stupid. An autobiography of a guy named Erico Malatesta, for some reason. I don't know why they thought that was contraband, but a handwritten copy of the chapter titles to this book called The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. All I did was write down the chapter titles. Now, for some reason, that book is on the Ohio prison banned book list. Like, we're not allowed to read that book, which is kind of dumb. But because I had the chapter titles of the book written down in my handwriting on paper, they took it as contraband. I don't know. It's kind of stupid to me. Those three things, the rap verse, the autobiography of Erico Malatesta, and the chapter titles to 48 Laws of Power, they deemed contraband, and they sent me to the hole under investigation. And their investigation led to them saying that I am one of the creators, leaders, and enforcers of the Army of the 12 Monkeys. I don't really know how, but that's what they did. They got me and a guy named Sean Swain, a guy named Les Dillon, and a guy named Sean Marshall. And all of us were sitting in the hole for a long time, 11 months total. They just kind of ran us through it, like rubber stamped everything. We were all found guilty, no matter what evidence was presented. And we were classed to go to level 5 security, which is supermax. I didn't have anything really to do with it. And then they just focused all of their questions on anarchism and Sean Swain. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of funny. So, go back to the cell, I tell Sean all this. And we go on. And every day, we're just stuck in segregation. We don't even hear a ticket yet. It takes a while for them to give us a conduct report. And then when they finally do, like months go by, we get our conduct report. and it's all four of the conduct reports were identical. Mine, Sean, Les, and Sean Marshall's. They were all absolutely identical, like as in they cut and paste everything together, and all they did was change the name on the top of the ticket. So it was crazy. It was very long, like 8 pages, and just explain what they have on everybody. And all I did was write a verse, and I had a little booklet about a guy named Eric Malatesta. So they ran us through the whole little system, and they ended up saying that we're going to go to super maximum security. That's level 5, OSP, Ohio State Penitentiary in Youngstown. Now, we appeal everything because it's just ridiculous. I didn't do anything at all, and I now have to go to Supermax, you know. We appeal everything, and Columbus just says, screw us. They kind of like railroaded everybody through. Well, Sean has, you know, some friends and followers out there who read the stuff that he writes, and they were able to put together a Kickstarter thing or something. I don't know what it was. They raised money in order to get him an attorney. They get him an attorney. He takes over this little thing, and he contacts the ODRC and says, look, you can't supermax these guys. All they're doing is, I mean, even if they did exactly what you said they did, all they did was express their First Amendment rights. They wrote and read. That's all you're saying these guys did, and you're telling me you're going to put them in supermax for that? They're not allowed to read and write in supermax? Yes, they are. So they erase that ticket. They turn it over. They never let us out of the hole. They keep us in the hole for another month and raise another ticket. This time, it's for things that we did while in the hole. Now, keep in mind, this is maybe 8 months later, 8 or 9 months later now, when they bring a brand new ticket. They keep the exact same conduct report date, right? So September 19th or 20th or something like that of 2012, they keep that as the date of offense. But now, the things that they said about what I did took place while I was in segregation. I wrote a letter to a group of people called Oak Root Press. And in the letter,
this call is originating from an Ohio Correctional Facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I was responding to a letter, and one of the questions in their letter was, you know, would you like a website made for this whole thing? And I told them in my letter to not make a website for the Army of the 12 Monkeys. Now, in their conduct report that they wrote about me, they said that my use of the word not, do not make a website, was code telling them to make a website, which is super funny to me. But, so that's what they said I did. And then another thing in my ticket was I wrote another guy in Columbus, and I told him that these 12 monkey guys need some help. They need your support. Because while we were back in the hole, we heard that Sean Marshall was cutting himself and smearing blood and his feces like all over the wall. So, you know, when you hear that, it's like, okay, we've been back here months and months, and there's times when I feel like going crazy. Sean apparently went crazy, so I reached out to somebody I knew in Ohio and wrote him a letter and said, look, these 12 monkey guys need your help. They need some support. So they took those 2 letters, my super secret coded message telling somebody to make a website, and my message asking for support for the Army of the 12 Monkeys. They took those 2 things and said that, you know, that's just cause for keeping me in the hole. Obviously, I am one of the creators, leaders, and enforcers of the Army of the 12 Monkeys, based on that and that alone.
And that was written in March?
That was, yes. Those were written in, like, March or April, something like that, of 2013.
So 6 months
But the
later.
date of offense on my conduct report is September of 2012. All the things that they said that I did took place far in the future. It was like Minority Report with Tom Cruise. They were able to judge the future, you know, and stop me before I committed my crime, I guess. Right. I don't know. It was stupid. It was ridiculous. And so, I guess all this time our mail was being monitored. Every 30 days the warden would sign off on us, you know, because we're continuously under investigation month after month after month after month. Nothing took place except for those two things. But
so
instead of supermaxing us...
Were they holding mail?
I'm sorry, what?
Were they holding your mail? Like, were they stopping mail for a while?
They would, every time we sent out a letter, it usually took like 2 or 3 weeks for the people that we wrote to get it.
Okay.
That's because they would just intercept our mail as we sent it out, and they read it, and they photocopy it. They photocopied every single piece of mail that we sent out, which is hilarious because Sean Swain was my cellie, and that dude wrote a lot of mail. I mean, like, every day he was sending out bare minimum 5 letters to different people. It was crazy. So whatever they wrote, or whatever they read, they had a lot of reading to do for him. I mean, I wrote some stuff, but not anywhere near, like, he wrote exponentially more than I did. And plus, every piece of mail that came in, they did the exact same. So it would take us a while to get our mail. Sometimes it took months and months for us to get our mail. It was stupid. But, so they maxed us. They instead of sending us to level 5, they sent us to level 4, which is still stupid. But I guess Sean's lawyer's funds ran out because that was the last we heard from that person.
So yeah, so the lawyer stated that it was a First Amendment violation, that they couldn't put you into maximum because of something you said or wrote, correct?
Right.
So did the prison ever define, like, where they draw the line between the right of free speech and then when it's considered like a terrorist act and they have to do something about it?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think there really is a line that the DRC has. Maybe there's a line that the government has. I don't really know. But the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, they blur that line real bad because, remember, now I told you what I did was I wrote a letter and I told the person to not make a website. And guess what never happened? They never made a website. And yet I got in trouble because I told the person to not make a website. Now they're saying it was code for telling them to make a website. Okay, let's go with that. Let's say they're absolutely correct. Let's say that I gave them detailed instructions for how to make a website that I want made for the Army of the 12 Monkeys. Right? Let's say that's the case. The website never got made at all. So even if it's true, I'm writing a letter roughly 6 months after I get put in the hole for this 12 monkey stuff, talking to a person in a completely different time zone. They live it was Oak Road, or not Oak Road Press, I'm sorry, East Bay Prisoner Support. Wrong people, sorry. East Bay Prisoner Support is located somewhere over by Oakland, California.
Right.
I'm in Ohio.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
And they never made the website. So
were they discussing making a website, or did someone tell you they were thinking about making a website, or why did you initiate that letter to them?
That was in response to a letter about, is there anything we could do? Maybe make a website. Should we do this? Should we do, different things like that. They were offering to support. Because, okay, so I'm Sean Swain's cellie for all these months, and Sean is known for writing radical things, and a lot of people read his stuff, and he's putting our names and contact information in the stuff that he's writing because the 4 of us are locked down for the same thing he is. So we start getting a whole bunch of mail. Thanks, Sean. And like I said, East Bay Prisoner Support, that's one of the people that contacted me. And they were trying to hear my side of this little story, this whole 12 monkey thing. So I'm explaining them that. And then one of the things was, how can we support you? Can we put together stuff for here? If you want to write stuff, can we publish it? Yada, yada, yada. Can we make you a website? Whatever. So that's when I responded with, do not make a website.
Okay. Well, that seems pretty clear from what was going on.
What's really funny is Sean Swain wrote letters to people asking them to make a website that he called BlAcKjAcK, and I'm pretty sure BlAcKjAcK is up. I'm certain, actually, that it does exist. I just can't remember what the website is, the URL is. But he was asking people to make a website that was very, let's use the word controversial, that the DRC would absolutely not like. And so I was asking people to not make a website, and he was asking people to make a website, and we both got in trouble for the same thing. And my website wasn't made, and his website was, and yet we both had the same consequences. It's hilarious. I love Ohio.
So were you and Sean Swain friends before the shakedown?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we were living in the same pod together. We met at the library in Mansfield. I was.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
When I first got arrested, I was in the county jail for a little while, and somebody had sent me like a catalog at a park, I believe, Prisoner Activist Resource Center or something like that, I think it was called. And in there was a couple of different zine publishers.
You have 1 minute remaining.
So I contacted the zine publishers and ended up reading these zines by Sean Swain and liked what I read. I was interested. So one day in Mansfield, we're in the library, and he sits right across from me, and I just kind of like notice his badge, and I'm like, Sean Swain, did you run for governor in 2006 from prison? And he was like, yeah, that was me. And I'm like, oh my God. And from that day on, we became pretty cool. In like 2009 or 2010 at the library, and we were pretty cool. In 2012, I moved to his pod, and we got like, we got really cool there. And then we got sent to the hole together in September, and 11 straight months of living with each other nonstop. Like, that's my dude. Sean Swain's good cat. Kind of crazy sometimes, but a good cat.
Yeah. So what about Sean Marshall, and you say it was Les Dillon? Is that his name?
Yeah, I knew Les just from Mansfield. I've seen him a bunch of times. Marshall was in the pod with Sean Swain and I, but like I didn't really talk to him very much. I knew who he was, seen him. Dylan and I, we've known each other for just in passing, I don't know, a few years. We weren't like friends. We just knew each other. And Marshall, I may have maybe said 5 words to that guy my whole life before this thing. And most of them were, excuse me. I know. And yeah, that's another thing. So
in segregation, did they keep the 4 of you together?
What's that?
When you were in segregation, did they keep the 4 of you together?
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
So, okay, in segregation, it's like its own little pod. It's smaller than the regular compound blocks, but there's still a bunch of cells.
Pod?
What?
Like how many guys are in that pod?
Right, in like maybe, let me see. I want to say maybe 50, maybe 40, probably like 40 guys in a block in segregation. But whereas in the compound it's like 120. The pods are just smaller, and when you go out, you have 2 choices for recreation. If the weather's permitting, you can go outside in seg, and it's like there's 4 walls, and your roof is like a chain link fence. So you get sunlight, you get air. It's just it's just small and it's blocked in. Or if you don't want to go outside, or if the weather doesn't, they don't allow you to go outside because it's too cold, you can have inside rec, and that's you and your cellie. You kind of go into the middle of the pod. It's caged in, and you got a little pull-up bar in there to kind of work out with it. But mostly people just kind of walk around and talk to people that are in cells surrounding this little rec cage area. So if you go out to rec and the person you want to talk to lives around the rec area, you can, communicate. You can talk to him. So yeah, I've seen Les every day. Marshall was in another pod. I don't know where Sean Marshall was at. I never really seen him while we were in the hole together. But Les Dillon was in the same pod as Sean and I. So, he would tell us what they were doing to him, and we'd tell him what they were doing to us. Me and him just fought every day in the hole. One of the things that's really funny is, they shook my cell down, and I told you what they found. They shook Swain's cell down, and they found stuff that he wrote about JPay. And that's it. They don't like what he had to say about JPay. That's all they got from him. And his typewriter, they took his typewriter from him. Les Dillon they found copies of the Army of the 12 Monkeys manuals. They found originals of the Army of the 12 Monkeys stuff that was like kind of taped together and glued together, and then he would put that on the photocopy machine and make the copies. And they found stuff that he was going to make copies of later on. And Sean Marshall, when they shook his cell down, they found copies of the 12 Monkey manuals and stuff like that. Both of those guys said, yeah, we are the Army of the 12 Monkeys. It's me and him. And I don't know why you got those two, Swain and Dzelajlija. I don't know why you got those two guys, because they're not a part of this at all. Marshall was like, I don't even know him. So, talking about me, yeah, they wrote affidavits, as a matter of fact, saying that. Are you there?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Wow, like a big, massive thunderstruck, and all of our power just went out.
Oh, you're on the power?
Okay. Well, wait a second. The lights came back on. I was wondering if the power cut the phone off. It's raining pretty bad. There was a big old thunderbolt. All the lights cut out for a second, and then it came back on. So, all right, we might be good. Hopefully, we don't have to lock down. So they wrote affidavits saying that we weren't part of the group, that they were part of the group. They created everything, and it didn't matter. They still locked us all down.
Did the same things happen to Dillon and Marshall? Like, were they in segregation for 11 months and went to Super Max all the same?
Yep.
Everything the same?
Yep. I don't know when Sean Marshall left Mansfield. Like I said, we weren't in the same block. Les Dillon, Sean Swain, and myself, we all got rode out to OSP the same day. We were all kind of shackled together and got on the bus together. So we rode out to OSP August something of 2013. I don't know when Marshall left. I never saw Sean Marshall in OSP. Actually, I never saw Dillon in OSP either. I went to B block, or B side, I should say. Les and Swain went to D side. And then later on, Swain ends up going to A side with me. When we got dropped to 4A, I saw Sean Swain. I never got a chance to see Dillon. Swain and I were in OSP for 18 months. I'm not sure how long Dillon was. And then they transferred, OSP stopped holding 4A level inmates. They made it a complete 4B, 5B prison. I got dropped to 4.
You're going to need to explain that. What's the difference between A and B?
Okay. Right, so level 4 is maximum security. Level 5 is supermax. Supermax is just classified as 5B. Maximum security is level 4, so you have 4A,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
4B is like the highest level of security for maximum security. I'm stuck in my cell all day long. The only time I come out is for rec, and I have to be by myself. I can't have any contact with any inmates whatsoever. I could have, like, you know, verbal communication. I could see people through glass walls and stuff, but I can't, like, touch them. We are separated at all times. And then I did a year like that. We all did. And then they dropped us down to 4AT, which is like a transition block between 4B and 4A. 4AT allows you to have, you have 2.5 hours outside of your block, or outside of your cell, I mean, and you can have physical contact with the people that are on your wall, on your range. So there's really only like 16 guys in a block. In 4AT, 4 of us will come out, and we can, you know, play cards or something, whatever, for 2.5 hours. I was there for like 2 months, and then got lowered to 4A, which is the least amount of security for a maximum security facility. We're allowed outside of our cells for 5 hours a day, and we're out with our range. So there's 8 of us all out in the pod, just hanging out, doing what we do for 5 hours. Then you would drop, so that's maximum. Level 4 is maximum security. And drop down to level 3, 3B and 3A, that's close security, which is what Mansfield was. Then you have level 2 of B and 2A, that's medium security, and level 1 would be minimum security. So when I say 4B, 4A, or whatever, all that means is I'm in maximum security. So I get dropped from 4B to 4A, and I go to A side, which is like the unit A in OSP. And I become a commissary porter. I kind of just deliver the commissary to guys' cells. That's really all I do. And because I did that, I would get to see Swain every day. Or, well, not every day, every store day. Every time we went to the store, I would pass out the bags in his pod, and then I just stop at his door and we'd talk until my boss said we have to go. I never got to see Dylan, though, while I was there. So, 18 months of OSP, they decide that they no longer are going to be a 4A facility. They're only going to be 4B and 5 for Supermax. So they ride out everybody. Most people went to Lucasville. Dylan and Swain and Marshall all went to Lucasville. I did not go to Lucasville. I ended up on a ride out to Toledo Correctional. Went to Toledo. I did 8 months there. They did not drop my security status while I was at Toledo to level 3. So I'm just kind of doing time there. And after 8 months of being in Toledo, they decide that they no longer want to be a level 4A prison either. Now they're 3. They're mostly a level 3, but there was a level 4 wing. So they get rid of all of their 4A inmates and replace them with PC inmates, which is protective custody. Guys that they don't want to be on general population. They're kind of either hiding from somebody or, I don't know, whatever it is. So Lucasville sends Toledo all of their PC inmates, and Toledo sends Lucasville all of their level 4 inmates. 70 of us had to drive across the state. Like it's a diagonal cut from the top left of the state to the bottom right. We drove 7 hours over a 3-week period. Every week they rode, it was 4 weeks. The first 2 weeks they rode 20 a week, and then they skipped a week, and then on the 4th week they rode 30.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I was on the first bus ride, went to Lucasville, and so when I get to Lucasville, Swain's gone. Sean Swain he had already gotten his status dropped, and he rode here. He rode to Warren Correctional, and Les Dillon was there. Seen him a few times. But it was very funny.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Les and I had a separation on each other for some reason. I have no idea why. I was not allowed to get a job in the chow hall at Lucasville because Les worked there. I didn't understand that, but he didn't either. So I don't know. And,
well, probably they were trying to keep him from recruiting you, right?
I don't know what it is. Recruiting what? I'm the leader and the creator and the enforcer. So yeah, I did 9 months in Lucasville, and then finally got my status dropped. And in August of 2016, I came here to Lebanon, and been here ever since.
And when you came into
the whole
Lebanon,
thing started in September of 2012.
Okay.
And it basically kind of ended in August of 2016. Things are sort of normal now, I guess, if you want to call prison normal. Nobody's really screwing with me too tough.
Yeah, do you want to describe, I guess, the differences, like on you personally, like how going from segregation to max to medium, and then like now you have what's considered like the least restrictive unit, correct?
Okay, I'm still in a closed security. I'm still level 3. But I'm in the block. I'm in what's called the super merit block. I don't cause any problems, and I work, so they put me in a pretty good block. This is called G block. And, yeah, this is decent. Lebanon sucks. Lebanon is the worst prison I've ever been to. Like, even factoring in the maximum security joints, this was the worst spot I've ever been to until they put me in G. George, and now it's kind of like, of all the experiences I've had in prison, this is kind of the most comfortable spot to live in. Which is really weird, that dichotomy in the same prison. I have the worst and the best. So I don't know. But I'm still close. I'm not in medium security.
But this call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
The differences were vast. Like when Mansfield, I had done most of my time in Mansfield, and I kind of had I had a little bit of a level of freedom there, sort of. I was a high school tutor, and I was a dog handler. I trained dogs every day, so I was able to go outside a lot. I was able to move around the compound fairly easily. Well, my side of the compound anyway, the south side. And I was able to interact with a lot of people because of high school, helping guys get their GEDs. I mean, I was able to, deal with them a lot. So I had a kind of like a certain level of freedom. I was pretty involved with the chapel there. And it was okay. It wasn't terrible living there. And then the 12 monkey thing happened, and they put me in a hole, and it was like 11 straight months of just being stuck in a shoebox, kind of. It was stuck in my cell all day long with the same guy, not able to go outside, not able to go to work, not able to do anything, just stuck. Can't watch TV, can't listen to music, can't do anything, just read a little bit, whatever books that the librarian would bring, which were few and far between. None of them were really good. And just nothing. There was nothing to occupy my time with except for a little bit of reading, talking to my cellie, and writing. That's basically it. We exercised. And that was, that sucks, man. 11 months of that. It was bad. And like, they did a bunch of things, too. Like, Mansfield has been there since they built it, I think, 1990-something, 94. I don't know exactly when it was built. But it was built in the 90s. And here we are in 2012, and the first half of 2013. And in that time, they changed a whole bunch of policies while we were back there. We used to get regular normal sized bars of soap, but while we're back in there, they changed the size to a quarter, literally a quarter of the size what we used to get. That's what we're getting now. They changed the razor blades. They changed the meals. They changed the library, how you could access books. They changed so much stuff. Everything was I can't remember the number, but one day Sean and I sat down and we figured out all of the things. We just were talking about all the things that they've changed just since we've been back there, and it was 20-something, maybe 22 or 23 different policies that have been set in place for decades since Mansfield was built, have all of a sudden gotten changed while we were in the hole. Now, maybe it was a coincidence, but, when it's 20 of them, kind of weird.
What year was that when all the changes took place?
This was in the 2012 and 2013 while we were there.
Yeah.
Everything got changed.
So that was an election cycle, maybe the new governor came in and said we need to start, watching the budget towards the prisons, right?
Oh, okay. Could be. All I'm saying is it sucked.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
really didn't have any connection to the outside world. Like, we don't, okay, yeah, it was an election cycle, but, like, we don't know what's going on. We can't read anything about, policy changes or anything. All we know is that we're going through it, and everything that has been in place is now changing, and it's taking time. It's not like they all changed overnight.
Right.
It's just, this one changed.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
And then on top of that, like, there's the stuff that happened to everybody. Then there was the stuff that just happened to us. Like, there was certain officers that were just real life dicks. Excuse my language. They were just terrible. We had so this was kind of like the biggest one. This was the straw that broke my back. They moved us around a few times. They kept us together. They kept Swain and I as cellies together, but they moved us to different cells over the course of time. And the second to the last cell that we were in was underneath what's called a suicide cell. That's the place where they put people who go on suicide watch. If they say that they're going to kill themselves, they put them in this cell, and they don't have a cellie, and they don't have access to, like, anything metal, and it's like horrible. The suicide cell is more like a punishment place, because not everybody talks about they're going to kill themselves, but if you go to the hole and you piss off the right one, the right staff, they'll just put you in the suicide cell for a while, and everybody hates it. It's terrible. I've never been in it, so I can't exactly tell you why it's so terrible, but everybody says it sucks. And usually, and when I say usually, I mean like 80% of the people who have gone into the suicide cells, they want to get out of it right away because they don't like it. So what they do is they kind of like stop up their door with like whatever clothing that they have or something. They figure out a way to stop up the like any type of cracks that will get out of the cell. So like the underneath the door and the drain in their shower, they'll stop that up, and then they'll turn their shower on and they'll like stop up their toilet and continually flush it, so allowing gallons and gallons and gallons of water to fill up in their cell to like their waist level. So it's kind of like they're swimming. It takes a while to do this, but they'll do that all night, and then all of a sudden they'll rip out the stop on the door and flood the whole range, the whole segregation unit. And that, policy dictates that they have to get the guy out of that cell and move him to another cell. So everybody who goes into the suicide cell does this because they don't want to be there. Well, our cell was, they flood it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, they flood it. It floods the range, and it's kind of funny.
So, okay.
It's usually hilarious, right? Usually hilarious. But this cell that we were in, our feeling had...
Well, back on the suicide cell, though, like, aren't they required to, like walk past or monitor the guys that are on suicide watch?
Yeah, as far as I know, that actually, from what I understand, there's supposed to be a guard sitting outside suicide. If there's somebody in there, they're supposed to be sitting there and watching him at all times to make sure he doesn't kill himself.
So the fact that he's able to flood up a cell to waist level indicates that that's not happening.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's nobody up there watching him. And they do it all the time. I mean, everybody who goes to the suicide cells, they love to flood their range. Because, nobody wants to be there. And like I said, usually it's hilarious. Before we got moved into this cell, whenever somebody would flood the cell from the suicide cell, we would watch like a waterfall of water cascading down the stairs. It was so funny. But this time, we live under this cell. And in this segregation
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
There are pinprick holes in the ceiling, in our ceiling, which is the suicide cell's floor, right? Mm-hmm. So this guy floods his cell, and they get him out of there, and instead of allowing the porter to go into the cell and take a squeegee and clean the floor like he's supposed to do, they just lock the cell door and keep that, they put that thing back down. whatever he used to stop up the door, it was back down because that water stayed in his cell for 10 straight hours.
Oh, wow.
Literally. It started at 7 p.m., and this whole ordeal ended at 5 p.m. Now, he's been gone all this time, since 7 something in the morning. But they stopped the door, and now all the water that's sitting in this guy's cell is slowly leaking out of all of these pinprick holes in his floor, which is our ceiling. And we've just got another man's toilet water dripping all over our floor. So we had to, like, move what little property we had. We had to move it all to a place that wasn't, you know, it wasn't getting wet. And it was just constant drip for 10 straight hours. Like, it was mind-boggling. I snapped. I started screaming for staff members to get me out of the cell, move me to another cell. I'm tired of having another man's toilet water raining down on my head all day long. And, yeah, they didn't do anything. They didn't care. They didn't move us. So we went a week. We kept talking to staff members, and they kept telling us they're going to move us. They didn't move us. So a week later, Sean and I just packed up our stuff, and we went out to rec one morning. With all of our stuff packed in our cell, we just went out to the rec cage, and we didn't leave the rec cage when they told us to. They told us that it's time to go back in, and we said we're not leaving until we talk to a white shirt, and that white shirt agrees to move us out of that cell. So, of course, they didn't get a white shirt till second shift. We were out there from roughly like 7:30 in the morning, maybe 7:45, whatever it was, whatever time first rec was. We were outside until after 2 p.m. They came in second shift. And the lieutenant, I can't remember his name, he said that he would give us a new cell, but we have to go back into our cell. So we agreed to that. We went in. Well, that day, the CO, the officer who worked second shift that day, told us that he spit in our food. When he passed out dinner, he told us he spit in our food. And he's a dick. I can't remember his name. Wilson, I think his name was. C.O. Wilson, maybe. I could be wrong on that. He was terrible. He was a regular second shifter in the segregation unit, and he did every time he talked to us, he would demean us. He was just a very shitty person. And he told us that he spit in our food, so we were able to talk when the case manager made a round. We told him, like, look, this dude just threatened us with our food. Now, I don't know if he's serious, but he said that's what he did. I don't know if he's serious, but I'm not going to eat this food, and that was what made us move. Going outside and refusing the lockdown didn't move us, but they finally, because of that, they allowed us to move to another unit with different correctional staff. We were living there for the next 2 months, and that was a completely different bit. It was a completely different experience. When we were in segregation for 11 straight months, but 9 of those months we were with the same staff members, and they kept treating us horrible.
You have 1 minute remaining.
And that felt like it went really quick. And then we went to the new section. It wasn't new, it was just a different segregation section with different staff members running it, and they didn't treat us like shit. You know what I mean? It was kind of crazy.
All right, so do you have your song to read?
It is right in front of me, yeah. I'm really just going to, like, spoken word it because I don't really have a delivery for it yet.
Okay. Well, can we set this up a tad? Tell us why you wrote the song.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
So, it's called Firestarter. It's just, there's a lot of things that I've been wanting to say in lyrics, and one day, the Lebanon Correctional Institution staff decided to ban me permanently from JFA, and that made me a little aggravated at prison in general. And I decided to write down a few things that I wanted to say. So, this is called Firestarter. Firestarter. BlAcKjAcK, I'm the arsonist. I like to start a fire, spark the lighter, cause a wild conflagration. Amazing when blazing, the greatest rhyming author. Writing bars, residing off the Cuyahoga by the docks of the flats. The burning river, my city ignites the water. Cleveland, Ohio, heart of it all, I call it my own fatherland. From the heights to Parma, wherever I may wander. Any rhymer want to try to conquer me on this mic's a goner. Sayonara. Because for 15 years I was locked up. Inside the walls behind the bars of violent convicts. Giant guardsmen, answer to vile sergeants. Under the dire auspices of tyrant wardens, life was hardened. Especially when my indictment charges by the prosecuting attorney were twice as awful as the crimes involved in. So all over now, though, I ain't go out like no martyr. Hip-hop's Tom Paine, revolutionary-minded monster. Scratch that last line. Thomas Paine ain't believing Jesus. Yeah, that's whack. I've gotta say, age of reason squeezes. That crap past minds, college made bacon, please believe it. BlAcKjAcK, damn right I've been saved. Praise the king that leads us. Flashback rap time. Locked in safe cages, teeth and scheming. Ragtag plans, my fraud escape, make GPs and needless. Brass mad dash climb, all the gates, escaped and see the scene. If that act backfires, all I'm saying, they kill me, so be it. Last dance, as I contemplate, breaking free, I see this. Abstract lamplight, augment great, blazing scene increases. Ag half and blind, all my face slayed, cause knees were weakened at that flash. Christ called my name, James, yes, he indeed lives. Graft and baptized, Yahweh saves, gauge in me the reason. Stand fast and strive, all the way, slaying demon fiends with rap tracks and Firestarter made flames. The meanest team with blast mask hand signs. Arson gangbangers bring the heat, kid. As the Firestarter head honcho, I've been called to spread gospel. Fire dropping this hot flow on the mic, hip hop and let lots know. When Messiah charges in, God knows that the violence gonna get hostile, but the most high is sovereign, hence God's throne in Zion. All the bets off, yo. That's when the Lord's kingdom reigns, yay. Children them warring with they state. No metaphor, bring the flame. Blade these predator fiends where they lay. I'm fed up, your kings just lay waste. Wherever for greed and they place. Competitor chief in chains stay or fed up for LinkedIn may pay. Whether core links or JPay, invite me on the web pronto. I'll send research reading great pages and try to start a 10-con program. Then support each can stay trained. Mind and body friend ox mode. Develop your team. One day, drink, riot, bombing them guards, glow. While the arsonist mob holds down networks forming, escape plays. Freedom fighters got the deck card show. Directions for bringing melee. It's time to start the rev rock though. Resistance force leads by face play with fire starters that spark, yo. Remember, your king Yahweh saves. That's it.
Nice, I like it.
There's a chorus to it, but I didn't want to do a chorus in between each one because, are you a fire starter? Because I'm a fire starter. We light up the night, put to flight all the tyrants, ignite the spark of fire starter. Are you a fire starter? Because I'm a fire starter. We light up the night, put to flight all the tyrants, ignite the spark of fire starter. That's it. Yay. So yeah, I'm going to try and get that in prison. Whether core links or JPay, invite me on the web pronto. Hello, world.
Yeah. So you don't think
Hello, internet.
So I'm understanding that you think that Old Testament law would be a good way to deal with crime currently opposed to prisons. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So how would that work out?
Let me see. Like, the concept of prison isn't necessarily a horrible idea because it's just a place to hold people and make sure that they do what they're supposed to do for a certain amount of time. But the way the prison system in America works now, that's like, it's not even making sure somebody's supposed to do anything. It's just the punishment is itself holding a person in captivity. And then the people who, like, run these prisons are just, golly, douchebags, man. Just, they do really terrible things to people. And, like, that's not cool. I don't think that captivity for captivity's sake is a good thing. That's just flat-out slavery. I would rather get into some form of, like, indentured servitude, like, to where if I have to go to a prison, all right, my maximum sentence has to be 7 years, right? Because that's what the Bible calls the Sabbath year, and then 7 of those, the year after that will be the Jubilee. So my maximum sentence would be 7 years, and inside of that 7 years, I would have to work to pay off whatever type of restitution my crime may have, deemed necessary. Once that restitution is paid off, I can go free. And then, there's even, this is kind of weird sounding, trying to compare it to prison, but there's even that, in the Old Testament, there's the law that says, if a slave wants to stay a slave to his master because he loves living there, he can do that. I'm not saying that I would want to, but I'm just saying that's possible. So, alright, theft is pretty easy. I stole something, so I need to pay it back. Now, there's certain guidelines in the Bible that says, how much I'm supposed to pay back. Either I just have to pay it back, or I have to pay back double, or I have to pay it back 5 times or 7 times, right? So I got a lot of work to do in order to pay that back. So that's simple. Theft is loss of property of another, and then I have to get that property back, and then my punishment will be over. Cool. But then you look at something a little bit more difficult, like rape. Rape is a horrible thing, and the Bible's totally against it. Now, I don't have the scriptures right in front of me to just quote these verses to you, but
this call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I know that whoever commits rape, that's a capital offense. You can die. So if everybody chooses that the death of the offender is necessary, then that offender should die. And when I say everybody, I mean there's judges, there's the investigators, there's the victims themselves, and there's there's the society at whole. Pretty much everybody has a say in what happens in this. So it's a good possibility that a lot of people are going to be like, no, don't kill him. Killing is wrong. So there's other things that need to be done. But even before that capital offense, or even before that, that death sentence could be imposed, there's other things that need to take place. First, the guy has to provide that woman with a marriage dowry, right? So he violated her sexually, and the only type of sexual union that's allowed is marriage. So in order to, I don't want to use the word legitimize, my vocabulary is failing me right now, but in order to sort of make things right, he has to pay her as if she was going to be his wife and pay her family. Then he also has to pay, on top of that, he has to pay for any type of medical bills she may have, and that includes therapy and, some type of mental rehabilitation, anything that the victim has to go through. So there's a lot of payment involved first, which means he would have to go to this little, prison house I was just talking about, sit there and work until he pays that off. Once that gets paid off, then if everybody still chooses to kill this dude because they legitimately can, he was a rapist, then he can die. If not, there's other forms of punishment available. They don't necessarily need to be death. So, I don't know. I think that I feel like those Old Testament laws, the more and more I read them, I remember when I first read them, I'm like, oh my God, who wants to do that? That's terrible. But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I believe that this book was written by the creator of the universe for the betterment of mankind. I really do believe that. So, and if the creator of the universe doesn't change, he's the same yesterday, today, and forever, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. If that's true, then these laws should apply not just to them back then, but to all people everywhere for all time. So I got to reading it more and more, and I got to comparing scripture with scripture, not just looking at what this verse says. Oh, cut a woman's hands off, or if he grabs, if she grabs a man's genitals during a fight or something. It sounds horrible. But the more and more I read,
You have 1 minute remaining.
It's more like when the woman grabs that man's genitals, it's destroying them, it's crushing them completely, and forcing that man to not be able to procreate, and therefore he can't do that mandate God gave man at the very beginning to be fruitful and multiply. She would therefore end his possibility of continuing his generation. So yeah, cut her hands off. She's terrible for that. I guess, maybe. I still don't like it, but there's some things that they make sense in some ways. But I do know that when I compare a lot of different things together, I see how a pretty good system would come out. Like, there's this law that when taken by itself, it's just, kind of weird looking. But it says if parents have a son who is just an idiot, he's a rebel, he's constantly doing stuff wrong, and he's been like scourged, so he's been beaten. He's been punished in some way, shape, or form. And these punishments that they've given him do not work. In other words, in modern parlance, he's a repeat offender. Like, he's constantly going back to doing what he's doing. That's when the parents can take him to...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
That's when the parents can take him to the judges and say, look, this kid, he refuses to act right. Now, when you read it in the King James Version anyway, it sounds like he's just an unruly child that they've beaten a couple times, and he's still an unruly child, and then they take him to the judges, and all of a sudden he can now be put to death. But the more and more I read, like, different passages around it and compare it with different scriptures in the law, it's not about this. This is not a kid. Like, this is a full-grown man. And even though he might not have done anything worthy of the death penalty, he continuously commits acts of whatever, evil crimes. Like, always doing things wrong. And no matter what the punishment is, he doesn't care. He just keeps doing it. He's a repeat offender. Well, now he's worthy of the death penalty. Right? Again, and I've said this before, just because an offense is a capital offense, just because a crime that was committed is worthy of the death penalty, does not ever mean that it has to be a death sentence. There's no mandatory minimum death sentence. It can't happen. And Jesus was very, he illustrated that perfectly with the woman that was caught in adultery. They caught her in the very act and brought her to the, brought her to the temple, brought her to the Sanhedrin, really. And Jesus happened to be there, so since he was there in the court, and he's this big, great teacher that they're trying to catch up anyway, go ask him, We caught this woman in the very act of adultery. According to the law of Moses, she should be stoned. What do you say? And Jesus said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. And nobody could cast the first stone. Okay, well, what he did was, he upheld the law. Yes, she is definitely worthy of death. She can be killed. But at the same time, he upheld God's mercy and God's forgiveness, which is expressed all throughout the law. Like, a whole lot of different passages say that God is, very merciful, very forgiving, and everybody else should be also. So he knew there's nobody here that's without sin. So, I mean, if you can be forgiven, then shouldn't you also forgive this woman? And it's absolutely true. She was worthy of death. They caught her in the act of committing adultery. She should, according to Moses' law, she could die, absolutely. But Jesus was pointing them to other aspects of the law, mainly forgiveness. Like, listen, just because she can die doesn't mean she has to. That goes for every offense. If you commit offenses, commit crimes that are worthy of death, just because they are doesn't mean they have to be. We're just programmed in America to think of, like, mandatory minimum sentences. Like, I committed aggravated robbery. If I'm found guilty of aggravated robbery, I know that for sure I have a minimum of 3 years to do in prison. Maximum 10, unless they have some type of extra specifications with it, but 3 to 10, it's going to happen if I get found guilty. Well, when you look at the Bible and you have that mindset, you're like, okay, you do this, you get your hands cut off. You do this, you die. Well, that's not necessarily true. These are just the possible, let's call them maximum sentences. The possible maximum sentence is a woman will get her hands cut off for crushing a man's testicles in a fight. You know what I mean?
I
That's
do.
a maximum sentence. Is that absolutely what has to happen? No, but you can't kill her. Don't kill her, because that's wrong. You know what I mean?
So there is kind of a school of thought that there's a change in covenant from Old Testament to New Testament, in that what Jesus was illustrating there is that, the principles that were put in place in the Old Testament, with under the New Covenant, that it wouldn't have to be the death penalty and cutting off hands, but it was more of like an age of grace. Have you heard that?
Okay. Yeah, and there's a lot of people who view that way, and I see it in a different way. So Paul's the one who really spells all this out for everybody in all of his epistles. He's the one who explains what this new covenant that was implemented on that last little Passover, what that really means for everybody, right? And he talks about he calls it the whole law. The whole law is, WHOLE. It's like every single thing in the 5 books of Moses, right? That's the whole law. And we are no longer under the whole law, because the law is spiritual, the law is good, it's the law of liberty, it's all this. We're not under the whole law, though. We're under, because that new covenant got rid of.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
It got rid of what are called the works of the law. We are no longer required to do the ritualistic, sacrificial things that, kind of make atonement for our sins. We don't need to do that. There's no more killing sheep. There's no more killing goats. There's no more wave offerings and sheep offerings and all that stuff. There's no more having to do what are called the works of the law. The works are identified pretty much in the book of Leviticus. You can see some in like Numbers and Deuteronomy, but mainly they're outlined in the book of Leviticus. You don't have to worry about all those rituals anymore. All those, because that was something that we don't know. We've never done that. We never had to live a life where, like, we're constantly cutting animals' throats off, pouring blood down some type of altar, in order to appease God. We don't have to do that. We never did. But they used to, right? They had to do it a lot. And like certain high holy days, they go to the temple, and you're talking like hundreds of thousands of these things, these sheep and goats and doves and different, offerings are being sacrificed. They're being slaughtered. Paul was saying that we don't need to do that anymore because basically one drop of Jesus' blood is worth all the blood that will ever be made ever. You know what I'm saying? And that blood has already made an atonement for us. That's this age of grace that we live in. We have been given atonement. We've made atonement simply by the belief in the Messiah, simply by the belief that Jesus Christ is the Son of God and He is our Savior. Once we have that belief firmly implanted in our hearts, then we're good. We don't have to worry about trying to make atonement because we're already connected to God that way. That makes sense?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But those are the works of the law. That's your little handwriting of ordinances that were nailed to the cross of Christ, the works of the law. The actual, standards of living still apply. And I'll put it one way. I'll give an example. Peter kicked it with Jesus real tough. Every single thing Jesus told Peter to do, he did. Every single thing. He told him to go get a sword, or he told him to send his boat out. He was like, all right, yeah, come on. You can get on my boat, you can preach. And then he's like, okay, go over there and cast your net out. And he's like, dude, I've been fishing all night. I've been fishing my whole life. What do you know about fishing? I'm telling you there's no fish. But because you told me to do it, I'll do it. He sends his net out, and he pulls up so much fish he almost breaks the net, right? Jesus told him to go get a sword. He's like, I got two. And then later that night,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
The temple guards came to get Jesus. Peter, remember, didn't the Lord just tell me to go get a sword earlier today? So he pulls out a sword and he cuts off Malchus's ear, and then he gets reprimanded by Jesus. Jesus told Peter that he was going to deny him 3 times that night. Peter was like, no, I'm not. And guess what? He did. Every single thing that Jesus told Peter to do, he did. Every single one. Unfailing. So, one would imagine that if Jesus told his disciples to no longer apply the dietary laws that's given in the Old Testament, 2 chapters, Leviticus, 11, I think, and Deuteronomy 14. God pretty much lays out, like, this is food, these animals right here you're to consider to be meat. You're consider these specific animals to be food. These other specific animals you're to consider not to be food. Don't eat these animals, right? That's not meat for you. That's just, they're animals, but they're not meat. They're not food. So you would think that if Jesus was like, don't follow these laws, that if any one of them was going to be like, okay, shoot, I'll go ahead and give me a bacon and lobster sandwich right now, it would be Peter, right? So years go by after the death, burial, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus Christ. We're in the book of Acts. Peter is about to meet this guy named Cornelius. But first he's at his dude's house, sleeping, and he has a vision about these unclean animals being lowered down in a sheet, and God's voice says, Peter, take these animals and eat them. And Peter's like, no, nothing unclean has ever passed before my lips. Right? This is years after Jesus, and we have been told that Jesus said to end all those old laws, including the dietary laws, making pork chops okay. Right? And yet Peter's like, no, I've never eaten anything like that. Why would I do it now? This vision happened 3 times, and then when he woke up, he meets 3 guys, Gentiles, who are supposed to take him to meet this dude Cornelius. He meets Cornelius, he hears the story, and then he tells the story about his vision. And he realizes, we say the Bible interprets itself. A lot of people have interpreted that vision that Peter had to mean that we're not supposed to worry about those dietary laws. But Peter interpreted that vision himself. The Bible already did. He said that now the gospel can be preached to those that we thought were unclean, the Gentiles. So that's what the vision meant. It had nothing to do with food, right? Therefore, those dietary laws were never actually annulled. There's scriptures that people refer to in Paul's letters where he's talking about vegetarianism or, what do you call it, omnivorism, where people who eat meat too. Right. They're like, he's talking about the dietary laws. No, he's not. He's talking about people who refuse to eat meat, period, as opposed to people who eat all foods. That's the whole thing he's talking about.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Damn, I went on a tangent about that. Okay, well, all I'm trying to say is there's nothing in the scripture that says to get rid of God's laws for what we should eat. And that's because that's a method of living your life. How you eat isn't a work of the law. It's not some type of sacrificial ritual. You know what I mean? It's just a way you should live. If you want your body to be at optimum performance the way God designed you to be, then you should put the right fuel inside your body. You know what I'm saying? And he lists which those fuels are and which they aren't, basically. Like the gas that goes into your car, right? Have you ever, because of your financial situation that day, have you ever put the cheapest type of gas you can put in your car in order to get more gas in the tank? Even though you would do better by putting the more expensive kind of gas in your car?
Okay, so I usually put the cheapest in, and then if I feel like I got extra money, I'll put in mid-grade.
Okay. So, compare that to the food that God wants you to put into your body as opposed to the food that you shouldn't put in your body, right? You're putting in the cheapest stuff just to, because that's where your financial situation's at. But really, you should be putting in the premium stuff, whatever the best gas is, because that's going to work out for your car better. Same thing with the oil that you put in. You're probably buying the cheapest oil, or maybe not the cheapest, but close to it, as opposed to You know, the much more expensive oil that's probably better for your car. You see what I'm saying? There's no need to feel guilty. You're just doing what you're doing. And, you know, ain't nothing wrong with it. But if you want your car to run at its optimum performance for a much longer time.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Then you should use what the manufacturer recommends that you put in your car. Same thing with your body. If you want your body to run at optimum performance for the maximum amount of time, you should use what the manufacturer recommends. And that's, you know, God's dietary laws. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
McDonald's is a convenience issue, you know, the drive-through, and they're everywhere.
Yeah, but Wendy's is so much better anyway. Suck.
Oh, my.
And they're liars. I've seen their commercials. The burger never looks like that. Never once.
That is true. That is true.
Wendy's, sometimes they do. Depends on who makes the sandwiches.
I'm recording.
Whom it may concern. What up? Remember me? Or has too much haze just burned enough of your brain cells that you can't tell yet who conveyed these words by looking at the name on the envelope and the clues you had in the search? I'm just playing. How have you been? Ain't too sure when's the last time the two of us mates conversed. You must ain't have heard. I've been incarcerated. Yards and cages. Ooh, the state's absurd. But I'll get to that later, yo. I'm saying though. You must ain't have heard? Come on now. Who ain't say the word? Dude, you ain't observed that I've been MIA for over a decade? Ooh, that straight up hurts. You knew the day they served me time. Mom Duke's related personally to you. You don't think I'm working to the same concern? What's that about? Us two were aces, word, two hellraisers merged. Now it's to the pavement's curve. You kick me, shoot, that's hateful, Herb. But I choose to say unspurned instead of excuse the hate, because mercy has been given to me, and forgiveness is key to true salvation's work. Believe it or not, it's true. I'm saved, rebirthed, and to a faithful servant of the Lord Yeshua, Jesus Christ, the truth, the way, the word, the life, the only begotten Son of the Father, who created earth and all the heavens in less than 7 days. My views have changed for sure. But I digress. Yes, you displayed some hurtful hues parading your true colors pertaining to the ways you estrangement, sir. If it was you in chains and yours truly to you this way, you'd burn. But I guess since I put myself here, they're my dues to pay, not yours. Yeah, well, you could say that, sure. The truth to rate in term more skilled than you, it states that your whole conclusions based on pure falsehood most humans may assert to be true since they have learned only what views the state encourages from. Since my indictment, there was proof the state observes multitudes of layman workers as consumers race to purchase goods. If you obey their terms and demand YouTube wage you earn. But step outside that line one time, state rules and chains emerge. Look up prison industrial complex on Google. Make the search. It's big business to this nation's bursars, dude. The famed 1%, the Occupy movement made a permanent fixture to the mainstream vernacular. Affluent slave owners running this new plantation turf. You see, the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states a person cannot be legally used or made to work as a human slave or serf unless convicted of a felony. No confusion. Gauge the word. If you're in prison, you're a slave. Now, compute the wage figures. A shrewd entrepreneur employer to inflate his worth wouldn't choose to pay for workers when he could use free laborers. Now would he? No. It's human nature's worst attribute. Voracious thirst for more despite who else may suffer. And now the U.S. claims the first place spot for who enslaves most per capita. Use your brains to work out why. It's lucre, gains, returns. So just remember, at any moment it could happen to you. Detainment hurts, but it's worse when loved ones get fed up with you and they desert. Do you think you could handle living this life of abuse and rage and hurt, where COs use their mates that burns or clubs that bruise to make you learn that they're in charge of you and mates are worse than feuds with gangs occur? Ain't no fist. They using shanks to murk you, dudes with blades under their tongues to buck 50. You chumps with you will soothe their prey with words, rock them to sleep with sweet talk, and them creeps will mutate, rape as jerks. You're always on guard. No room for making mirth. That's super dangerous. Twerps who you think were pure would steal from you so they can splurge. And solitude's a made-up word that's only used to make you yearn for peace and quiet that you never find, just gloom and hatred. I'm really happy that you're not in prison, my dude. This place is cursed. Man, I'm gone. You ain't got it right back. Yours truly, James, the word says. P.S. By the way, the Bible states in Genesis 2, the 18th verse, that a man ain't supposed to be alone. So when you forsake a person, you should know God doesn't like it much. We cool him just saying, you heard? Be blessed, homie, and trust that I'm praying for you Sunday at church.
Do you consider yourself a Christian anarchist?
I consider myself a Christian. Anarchism is a philosophy that some of its tenets I really, really like. I don't know that and that's funny because, like, anarchism, the very word means, like, you can't have a list of applied tenets to it because, anybody could think of that word meaning anything that they want. But this call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored. There's certain principles of that philosophy that I really love. I really love direct action. You know what I mean? I really love I can't remember the wording, but like the communal aspect of it, self-reliance. I'm into all that. There's lots of different tenets of anarchism that I follow, but then there's others that I really don't, that are like very big in the anarchism movement, like the whole no gods, no masters thing. I think that's stupid. Yes, we absolutely can have leaders to follow. I think that's a good idea because not everybody can do every single thing, and not everybody is even like mentally equipped to do certain things. So sometimes we need people to lead us in the right direction. However, we also should, not necessarily, just because we allow ourselves to be led by somebody, that does not mean that we have to do everything that person says, if it goes against what we believe. So, Christian anarchist, yeah, to a degree, but I just prefer Christian. I'm good with just being a follower of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That's my number one title. Anarchism is a philosophy that I can adhere to in many respects, but not all. It beats the crap out of, like, Democrats and Republicans, I think.
Yes, I agree. I've heard the Christian anarchism slogan as, I will bow before but one king. And I don't know, I kind of like that. And I do agree that there should be leaders, but I also don't know if, the government needs to be enforcing who is our leaders. Like, shouldn't we have a choice in who we choose to follow or who we choose to be under?
Absolutely. And I don't believe that choice should be reduced to two specific individuals that other people said that we have to choose between. I think that's stupid. I looked at Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and was like, I don't want any of these people. I don't care about either one of them.
Right.
This guy sure sucked. And her husband had locked up way more people than anybody else before him. So, don't know if I like it. Yeah, absolutely. We should take who we want. But at the same time, also, like, does it matter? I mean, has whoever was the president of the United States seriously impacted your life whenever that person was in office? I don't know. But they did. Maybe some more than others. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, our pay structure at work would have changed if Hillary got in to get me making about $10,000 less a year than what I am. So in that sense, yeah, that was a $10,000 vote change in my personal world. But, it affects different people differently based on the policies they put in place,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right about that. But then when you look deeper into it, does the country need a president? There's this large landmass that we all live in. Do we need one person saying that these policies that they want to put together are going to affect every individual in this big country that we live in? I don't think that we do.
Yeah.
I don't think that we do. I don't think we need a president.
If you want to give us a little bit of your story about, like, how you found Jesus in prison?
Certainly. Yeah, that was like right there in the middle.
Yeah.
That little song. So, oh wow, that's a story right there. Okay. A little bit of backstory. This was January of 2011. I was at pretty much like the lowest point I had ever been. for the past couple of years, prior to this, I was just constantly getting my head cracked in the court system, trying to win an appeals, and the judge just kept screwing me over, or my ex-girlfriend, one of the witnesses in one of the cases that I got, was kind of screwing me over. Then there were things happening in the prison system itself, like in the prison that I was at, little penitentiary politics where people were just like maneuvering around me when I was in the dog program, and like they got me in a lot of trouble, had me sent to segregation just because they needed me out of the way so that they could get a better positioning within the dog program so they could get their hustles on. It's just politics. It's fun. And just a lot of things were going on. It was a real low part of my life. I was never able to get my status dropped so I could go to Grafton to be with my cousin and my dad where they were at the time. And so January 12th, I am in the hole. No, I'm in the chow hall, and I've got my hat on my head, and the CO is like, take the hat off your head. So I do. And then I eat my meal, and then I stand up to go leave, and I put my hat back on my head because I'm about to leave, like I do every day. This is exactly what I do on a consistent basis. Everybody does. And the CO just charges at me. He's like, I told you to take your hat off your head. So I take my hat off my head. I'm like, I'm leaving, boss. He says, get on the wall. So I'm kind of a smart ass at the time. I salute him like a Nazi. and I click my heels together like Colonel Clink. And I say, yes, sir. And he grabs my wrist and twists me around against the wall and says, don't try to assault me. And I'm like, oh, really? That's what you're going to say this was? And he handcuffs me, and he sends me to the hole. So, like, I'm in the hole thinking that, like, I'm in there for wearing a hat. Right? And it turns out later on that he wrote the ticket that I attempted to assault him, and he was able to secure my right hand. Whatever. So I'm in the hole, and
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I was in a really miserable part of my life, and I was just fed up. Like this was 2011. I have another 11 years to go on my prison sentence, and it's the way that the court system's going for me, it's apparent that I'm going to have to do every day. And I was just sick of it. So I started that night making plans like I'm going to just leave. If they catch me, they catch me. If they don't, great, I'm free. I don't care. But I'd rather at least try and get the hell out. And before I left, it was absolutely set in stone. Like I was going to kill the cop that just put me in the hole for wearing a hat, He's a miserable bastard. Nobody likes him. I haven't liked him for years, and I just think at the time I thought that the world would be a better place without him. So, off him, and then hit the fence. And like I said, if they catch me, whatever. So, there's this guy in the hole named Hebrew. I don't know what his real name is. Everybody called him Hebrew. And he just kept screaming out of his door Bible scripture. Like he would just, scream the Bible out the door. Now, at the time, I had read the Bible a number of times, and it was more for an intellectual thing. I didn't really believe it. I thought there was a lot of wisdom in it and everything, but I didn't believe that it was the Word of God or anything like that. I just thought it was a way to control people or something. I read this book, I quoted it in the song, I read a book called The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine, and at the time when I read it, like his arguments seemed infallible. Like the book is full of contradictions, and the Bible I'm talking about is just full of contradictions, and it can't possibly be the Word of God because of that, It's basically the premise of his book. And it had me, I'll tell you that. When he's reciting the scripture, he's just screaming it out of his cell over and over again. He won't shut up. Like everybody's telling him to shut up. Anyway, it's going on for like an hour and a half. It's annoying. So I just under my breath, I'm like, okay, God, apparently this guy will listen to you. If you're there, could you get him to shut up, please?
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
And, literally, before I even had the words completely out of my mouth, he stopped. Right? So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, could you please open this door for me? And then that didn't happen. Whatever. But he did stop, and I thought that was kind of incredibly coincidental. Now, I did believe in God. I did believe that there was a higher power than human beings. I'm not that. I was never that narcissistic. But I just didn't think that the Bible at the time was, you know, the actual word of God. And so that happened, and I was like, wow, that's cool. Whatever. And I'm up all night, and I'm pretty much planning, you know, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to plan an escape. And so it's late now. It's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on the 13th. And, the 13th. So, there's no light. There's a light outside of my cell on the outside of the prison. There's a thin window, and there's like a light out there, but it's broken. So there's no light coming directly from the outside window. And then I have a small window on my cell door, and on the outside of that is an exit sign. That's the only light I've got going in there. My cell light is turned off from the outside because it's, you know, it's late, it's nighttime now. And I got this little faint glow from the exit sign coming into my cell. And I'm just kind of chilling in a book, planning this stuff out. I've been up all night. And this glow starts getting brighter and brighter. And it's like really bright. And like I've got my eyes closed, but like, you know how when you look up at the sun with your eyes closed, you got that bright red going on because you're looking through your skin of your eyelids? That started to happen. It got really, really intense. Alright, so this light's getting bright, and I'm squinching my eyes shut. I'm tripping. I'm like, what the hell? You know? What is going on? And my eyes are squeezed shut because I can't really see anything. And I hear my name called, right? James. Like, authority. You know what I mean? Like, James. And, like, there's nobody in my cell. But this is, like, right next to me. This isn't, you know, from the outside. This isn't some person in another cell. This isn't the cop at the door. Nothing. This is, like, right in my cell with me. So I jump up. I'm thinking that maybe I dozed off, and this cop Hamilton is in my cell ready to put some work in with me, because that's all I've been thinking about is killing him and getting over the fence. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm kind of shook, and I jump up ready to fight. And I look, and there's, how do I explain it? There's a guy in my cell, and he looks a little familiar. Not completely, but I mean, you know, kind of sort of recognizable. And everything in my body, like, how do I explain it? Like, you know when your foot falls asleep, and then you like, straighten your foot out normal, and eventually, like, you get those pins and needles because the feeling is coming back into your leg, and it's hard to stand on it. So I felt those pins and needles throughout every inch of my body, from the top of my head to the bottom of my toe, and they were vibrating, and it was almost like every cell in my body was like, bow down.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
It was like my body was telling me that this is God, bow down. You know, he didn't say nothing about bow down, all he said at this time was my name, which made me stand up. And then instantly I dropped to the ground. Right now, I don't bow before anybody. I've never done that. That's not something that I've even been taught to do, so why would I? But I did. I dropped straight down to my face. And he told me, you know, stand up. And we started talking, and as we were talking, the cell kind of like evaporated. It kind of disappeared, and it was no longer like in my view. It was no longer like 3 a.m. It was kind of like maybe 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, sometime like that. And we were outside in a really nice, like I don't know, like a pasture off to the side with some mountains. There was a waterfall. There was next to a stream, like a river that was passing past us. There was animals. I could smell the grass. I could smell the air. I could smell the flowers in the air. I could hear birds. You know, I'm looking around. It's the most beautiful scene I've ever seen in my life. And so we talked for a while about a bunch of stuff. I don't really want to go into all that, but after the conversation was pretty much over, he was like, so you know what you have to do, right? And I said, yeah, and I want to accept you into my heart as my Lord and Savior. And so at that, when I said that, it was very weird. It was like my chest kind of opened up, like a I don't know, like kind of like a dresser door or something, like cabinets. Like my chest opened up from the middle out to the side, and my heart was beating. And with every pump of the heart, it like grew bigger. You know, it got really large, and it grew outside of my chest to like my size, like really, really big. And then my heart opened up, but it like in the center of it kind of rolled out like a scroll. Kind of rolled out to the side. And Jesus, which is who I was talking to, stepped in to my heart, and it closed back on him. And then with every beat, it got smaller, and it shrunk back into my chest. And then my chest closed, and I felt warm, and I felt peace, and joy, like real live joy, not like happiness, but like perfect, just contentment and love. You know, it was crazy. It was awesome. I never felt that way. And I'm looking around my surroundings, and I take a big breath of air, like, wow.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I inhale a big breath of air, like, this is great. And I close my eyes, just kind of soaking it all in. And when I close my eyes, a big boom happened, like a really big, loud crash. And that was the sound of my cell doors train slot opening up for breakfast. I opened my eyes, and I was back laying in my bunk in a cell, and it was breakfast time. They were giving me pancakes. And that kind of tripped me out. I was like, wow, there's no way that was a dream. There's no way. That was too real. Like, I've never had a dream ever that real. I've had a lot of dreams where I was like, wow, that felt so real, but nothing like that. That was actual, like, experience.
And so from what you're
that
saying,
was crazy.
that happened,
So later,
like how long did that entire experience last? So
a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a nice long conversation. And so later that day, mail comes. Now, keep in mind, I had just went to the hole last night at dinner. And I've been to the hole a few times, and I know how this stuff works. When the mail comes, I shouldn't get that mail yet. I won't get it till the day later, because since I was put into the segregation at dinner, the town office isn't going to have my stuff ready for tomorrow's mail. And so my mail will go to my pod, and my pod officer will be like, hold on, he's not here. He'll redirect it to the mail room, who will then redirect it to the hole for the next day's mail. Okay? Well, mail comes, and I get 2 pieces of mail split up under my door. They're both from my cousin Sandy. My cousin Sandy is the most Christian woman I've ever met. When I was younger, like, she always took me to church, to Bible studies, and teen, youth groups in church and stuff like that. Well, I hadn't heard from Sandy since 2006. This is like 5 years later. And inside, there's a letter, and then there's a package. So I open the letter first, and I read that, and she says, in the letter, amongst other things, just, a whole bunch of niceties and everything, telling me she loves me and all this. But in the letter, she said that God spoke to her and told her to mail me this letter and this book. So she's obeying God, and here's this book. I love you, all this. That's good. So open the book. It's a red book. It just says prayers on it. And inside of the book is like a whole bunch of different ways to pray for any different circumstances. I mean, it's like literally hundreds of different kind of prayers you could say. In accordance with the Bible passages themselves, how to pray scripture. And I'm looking at this letter, I'm looking at this book, and I know there's no way for this mail to be here yet. And you mean to tell me, this is the most Christian woman I know, she's never told a lie in her life as far as I'm concerned. You know what I'm name. She's old. She's in her upper 70s. I've known her ever since I've known her when I was a little kid. She was always, kind of old to me, But very nice woman, very loving. And I've never known her to tell a lie. And you're telling me that God told you to write me after 5 years. It's been a long time since I heard of you. All of a sudden, you're told to write me. At least a couple of days ago, based on the postmark, for it to get to me in prison. And I happened to get it the day that I woke up from the most insane religious experience I've ever had in my life. Okay, maybe this thing is real. And from that day forward, this is all I've been doing. I've focused intently on Jesus Christ. I follow him. He is my Lord. He is my Savior. I can't wait for him to come back. Stop all this nonsense. That's basically kind of it.
That's an amazing story, truly. Yeah.
And it's crazy because I needed it. I don't think there's any other way. I've been told the gospel by so many people. I don't know. I had a pretty decent intellectual head knowledge of what the Bible said. I could actually argue with, people who are trying to evangelize me. I could argue with them and show them out of their own Bible, what they're saying is nonsense. I was pretty good at it. And, I don't know, I guess I needed that Saul on the road to Damascus thing in order to get it through my head.
Yeah.
It's real.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that's changed you? How was your prison experience before that event, and then how was it after that event?
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Well, for starters, I no longer was going to kill that guy. I no longer was going to make the attempt at the escape. I was going to go ahead and just stand fast through it. I was going to take whatever God put on me because I knew that he wouldn't put anything on me that I couldn't handle.
Yeah.
So, and I knew he was going to give me the strength to do everything I needed to do. So I was able to walk through life like that ever since. I was really bitter about a lot of stuff. I just kept, I was constantly angry. And then, I wasn't. And then, I don't know, sometimes you fall back. Well, this 12-monkey crap happened. And I'm sitting in the hole for 11 months for something that I know I didn't have anything to deal with. And then they send me to OST for it, and Lucasville, or Toledo first, then Lucasville, then here. It's I got a little bit aggravated all the time, kind of. They put it on me pretty tough. But at the end of the day, I always look at it like, don't worry about it. It's nothing I can't handle. So I don't know. I've got, what does it affect me? I kind of have more of a peace. I don't want to kill people. You know what I mean? Sometimes I said I do. Sometimes occasionally I say I do, and I always try to justify it with my favorite little justification line for my anger that says, Saul killed his thousands, but David his 10,000s, and David was a man after God's own heart, so that means I should take you out. But I'm just playing. I don't really mean that in my heart. I don't know. I walk through life a lot easier now. And I know I have an assurance now. It's like what's a good analogy? If I jump out of a plane, there's nothing on me. I have an assurance that I'm going to die. But if I jump out of a plane with a parachute on me, like a good parachute, that I know is packed right, I then have an assurance that if I pull this cord, I'm good, no matter what. You know what I mean? Nobody thinks about when they're jumping out of a parachute, or when they're jumping out of a plane with a parachute, oh my gosh, I hope the thing opens, I hope it opens, I hope it opens the whole time they're falling down. No, they're not thinking about that. They're looking around, they're seeing the amazing view that they've got from this bird's eye view, and they just know once they pull this cord, everything's good. You know what I'm saying? That's what I have. I have this I know for sure that everything is going to work out fine. And at the end of it all, I'm going to be in the most amazing position ever. Ruling and reigning with Christ as an heir to God. You know what I'm saying? proclaimed as an heir to this kingdom. So I know everything's going to be cool. I just know it. That's kind of, when you live that way, when you walk through life that way, I don't know, you kind of do things differently. I choose to do things that God said to do in His law. I choose not to do things that God said not to do in His law. I know that I'm not going to gain my salvation by following His laws, because you can't. I already got that through faith in the blood of Jesus Christ. But because of that faith in the blood of Jesus Christ, because of that salvation, I want to do what God said. And I want to not do what God said not to do. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
And by living that way, man, life's kind of awesome for real. I don't know what it is. Hey, put that on the internet if you want to. Do whatever you want to do with all that stuff.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.